These are the attributes of God for which no human reflection or human illustration can be found. They are attributes that God doesn't share with us. When we say, for example, that God is infinite, we are speaking of an uncommunicable attribute. God doesn't share this quality with us. God alone is infinite, free of all limitations of space and distance. As the New Bible Dictionary expresses, when we say that God is infinite in spirit, we pass completely out of the reach of our experience. Yes, we do. God is omnipresent, everywhere, equally present. Just think about that for a moment. There is no place where He is only fully present, where He isn't fully present. I, on the other hand, can only be in one place at any given time, and even then I am not always fully there. God is also absolutely self-existent and self-sufficient. Of this attribute, R.C. Sproul writes, "The grand difference between a human being and a supreme being is precisely this. Apart from God, I cannot exist. Apart from me, God does exist. God does not need me in order for Him to be. I do need God in order for me to be." This is the difference between what we call self-existence, being, and dependent being. We are dependent. We are fragile. We cannot live without air, without water, without food. No human being has the power of being within himself. Life is lived between two hospitals. We need a support system from birth to death to sustain life. We are like flowers that bloom and then wither and then fade. This is how we differ from God. God does not wither. God does not fade. God is not fragile. Matthew Henry expressed it this way: the greatest and best man in the world must say, "By the grace of God, I am what I am." But God says, absolutely, I am that I am. As we investigate such attributes, we become increasingly aware of the indescribable vast distance between ourselves and God. Ironically, this distance from God will be even more real to us when we get closer to God. In heaven, as Jonathan Edwards reminds us, the saints in glory are so much employed in praise because they are perfect in humility and have so great a sense of the infinite distance between them and God. Even though the more you are aware of this distance and this difference between you and God, the more you will experience and express humility. You'll say with David, "Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain." Psalms 139:6. Therefore, I urge you in the coming months to devote yourself to the study of the incommunicable attributes of God. For here, it doesn't get any better than Wayne Gruden's systematic theology, or find the abridged version entitled Bible Doctrine. In both editions, you will find a chapter on God's incommunicable attributes with the subtitle, "How is God different from us?" Read this chapter and I believe it will have a profound effect on your heart. Study the doctrines of grace. Number 2 on my list of longer-term pursuits, study the doctrines of grace. Study the doctrines of election, calling, justification, perseverance, and effective humility. Why? Because the doctrines of grace leave no room for self-congratulation, no room for self-glorification. For example, Mark Webb notes how the doctrine of election curbs our pride. God intentionally designed salvation so that no man can boast of it. He didn't merely arrange it so that boasting would be discouraged or kept to a minimum. He planned it so that boasting would be absolutely excluded. Election does precisely that. That's exactly right. And the same is true for all the doctrines that concern our salvation. Consider the doctrine of our calling. Fundamentally, we are Christians because God called us. Sovereignly, graciously, mercifully, effectively. Not because we called out to Him. Our calling upon Him was preceded and made possible by His calling us. That's humbling. Or take the doctrine of our justification. We are justified before